Hello everyone, let's play Frame the Shop. I know you're not supposed to have a window behind you, but whatever. I did read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I'm undoubtedly going to accidentally call the Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds because that flows better. Why is it this way? And I know, I never read things that are like new. This is so not on brand for me. What am I even doing? However, I do have this lovely bird necklace right here that you can watch me unbox. I've got an art unboxing coming up soon, so that'll be exciting for all of you. But for right now, we are going to talk about this Hunger Games book. There are going to be spoilers for the Hunger Games, probably, but I feel like if you haven't read the Hunger Games, you probably aren't really interested in this book anyway. I have Candy, my laptop, here, and we are going to go ahead and read the blurb from Goodreads first, like I always do. So let's go ahead and do that. It is the morning of the reaping that will kick off the 10th annual Hunger Games. In the capital, 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow is preparing for his one shot at glory as a mentor in the games. The once mighty House of Snow has fallen on hard times, its fate hanging on the slender chance that Coriolanus will be able to outcharm, outwit, and outmaneuver his fellow students to mentor the winning tribute. The odds are against him. He's been given the humiliating assignment of mentoring the female tribute from District 12, the lowest of the low. Their fates are now completely intertwined. Every choice Coriolanus makes could lead to favor or failure, triumph or ruin. Inside the arena, it will be a fight to the death. Outside the arena, Coriolanus starts to feel for his doomed tribute, and must weigh his need to follow the rules against his desire to survive, no matter what it takes. Whatever it takes. Okay, that was a blurb. Surely was. I have a lot of notes. A lot of notes. By the way, yes, Snow's name is Coriolanus. You could tell the Hunger Games wasn't meant to have this prequel because his name is Coriolanus. That's a big oof. I'm so sorry, my dude. Your parents clearly didn't love you. Knocked my light over trying to grab a pen, so that's great. I am a professional. I don't know what you're talking about, she says as she is once again not framed in the shot. We're gonna discuss this damn thing. I'm not gonna be like, should you read it, should you not read it? We're just gonna talk about it. Something big that disappointed me right away is that Snow is kind of a rich kid, but he's a poor rich kid. So like, he's living in this penthouse, but it's only because it was like his father's penthouse, and like they're barely managing to pay for it. And the war recently ended, and Snow has memories of the war when he was starving and he saw people eat each other. And so like, I feel like it's falling a little bit too hard back into Suzanne Collins' comfort zone, and I really wish that she had tried to break out of it. I really wish that Snow had been a pampered rich kid. I feel like that would have been a really interesting thing to explore, him having to deal with the tribute, Lucy being poor, and like not understanding that, and like how he would deal with that. Because Snow is poor, I feel like it really kind of undermines his story. And again, I think it's because Suzanne Collins really, her comfort zone is writing people who are poor. She doesn't write rich people. I was really kind of curious, it kind of gets explained later, but Lucy, or Lucy Gray as they keep calling her, gets a normal person name. Her name is Lucy, and everyone else has a Suzanne Collins Hunger Game silly name. And I was like, why does Lucy get a normal name? That's not fair. Lucy is, of course, the female tribute who Snow is going to mentor. It's early in the games, so they're trying out the mentor thing, but not with a previous victor of the games, but with a student at this school that Snow goes to. Right away when we meet Lucy, we know that she has got a terminal case of the quirkies. She is not like other girls. The good thing is she's not like Katniss, but I was really hoping for somebody who maybe wouldn't be quite as confident. Lucy, I feel, is a weak character. And it's kind of hard to explain because when you think of Lucy, if you've read the book, you're like, she can't be a weak character. She's very outspoken and present, you know, but she doesn't really have failings. She doesn't really have flaws. Like, she's not a fighter physically, but that's not really a flaw, in my opinion. Like, she's really good and smart and has the right answers and is so well adjusted that she, like, goes into the Hunger Games and comes out and is, like, fine. So she felt to me like a plot point. She didn't feel like a real person. Like, Katniss felt like a real person. Lucy did not. I had a little bit more about Snow. Because we know who Snow becomes, we'll never be inclined to like him, so do something more interesting with him. While I was reading this, I found out that there's going to be another Twilight book that's just Twilight from Edward's point of view, and I was like, hey, at least this book isn't just the Hunger Games again from Peeta's point of view. We can thank our lucky stars that at least it's not that. Everybody who was mad about this being from the point of view of President Snow, at least it's not the Hunger Games again from Peeta's point of view. This is a struggle I've had with many Suzanne Collins books. The side characters are more interesting to me than the main characters. I really would have loved a book from the point of view of one of the side characters whose name I can never remember because it's silly. But he was a district kid and then he was elevated somehow. I forget how, like, I know his dad is a big name, but, like, how did they come up from the districts? He's got this weird point of view of, like, I was from the districts, but now I'm in the capital, and what the capital is doing is wrong, but I have to play along with it, and he's sort of Snow's friend, although Snow mostly just manipulates him, but I really wanted this story from his point of view. Like, let us see Snow. You want to give us Snow's backstory. Let us see him through the point of view of this other character. And I feel like Snow would have been more interesting for it, and we would have gotten a more interesting story. I'm just going to be sitting here explaining how I would have done it. That's going to be happening a lot, I'm sorry. One thing about the Hunger Games world is that it is weird. Things often just don't make a lot of sense. Like, you're like, how did this happen? How do we have this technology but not that technology? How are we creating these, like, super awesome mutation monster creatures, but, like, they're technology for little flying drones crash all the time? When it was from Katniss's point of view going into the capital, it was easier to just be like, well, she doesn't understand, so I don't understand, this world is weird. But when you're with a character who grew up in the capital, you feel like, what is this world? It's a lot more noticeable. I even had this problem in the final book of the Hunger Games when we were, you know, attacking the capital and just, like, booby traps were coming out of everywhere and the ground was disappearing, and I was just like, how? What? Suzanne Collins' strengths definitely involve when she can just do whatever she wants with the world, but in this case, it doesn't really work for me. Suzanne Collins also writes a lot of characters that definitely read as though they might be on the ace spectrum. Katniss definitely could be read as ace, and Snow gives off a really demisexual feel. He makes it clear that he has never really felt attraction to anyone until Lucy. Now, his attraction towards her, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is pretty, flawed and not great, but it's interesting that Suzanne writes so many ace-leaning characters. Again, things just kind of happen. At one point, bombs go off to ruin the arena, and they're just like, oh, it was rebels from the districts, but, like, it's hand-waved away, and I'm like, what is really going on? Like, I kept waiting for the twist to be that somebody in the Capitol actually did it for some political reason, but no, it was just a thing that needed to happen so there could be an action sequence, and it was just rebels, don't worry about it. It was also really confusing, and maybe I missed something, but they, like, in this version of the Hunger Games, they take the tributes from their districts, they throw them in a cage, they don't feed them, they don't wash them, nothing, and then at the end of, they give them water and that's about it. And by the end of it, they're all supposed to fight to the death in the arena. And you're sitting here going, how do these kids have enough energy to ever fight to the death? This seems stupid, you should at least feed them. And Snow was, like, the first person to think of, like, feeding his tribute. That might be a good idea. But it seems like they were still doing interviews with the tributes before this, so, like, did they drag half-starved, raggedy children out of the cage to interview them? Why? Or did I miss a part where, like, Snow suggested they do interviews or something? Because it definitely seems like the interviews were something that was already happening. There's also the character of Tigress, who is in this. You may remember Tigress. She appears in the other Hunger Games books briefly. She helps out Katniss and Peeta, as I recall. And the one thing about Tigress in that is that she has modified herself to look like a tiger. And in this, her name is still Tigress, but she hasn't done any of that, nor has she seems to express any desire to do so. So I'm like, why is her name Tigress right now? I know why it's Tigress right now. It's that so we, the readers, can be like, oh, it's that character. Oh, Suzanne, you're so wily. But in reality, I feel like her name wouldn't be Tigress to start out with. She would change it when she decided to modify herself into a tiger. Tigress is sort of the prim character, even though I think she is older than Snow by a little bit. She's his cousin, but they behave like siblings, and she is the too good, too pure for this world character that Snow loves. There were a lot more songs in this book, and I feel like that was mixed results. Some people love Suzanne Collins' songs across the board. I feel that some of them were okay, and some of them were pretty bad. Of course, it might have been a little bit the fact that I was listening to the audiobook, and the audiobook narrator didn't even try to sing, he just read them. And it was very flat and boring, and I really don't understand why such a big name book as this couldn't get someone to actually, like, ask what the tune of the songs was supposed to be and sing them. Unless Suzanne Collins just, like, went through and wrote songs only to existing tunes, and that's why we couldn't have them in the recorded book version. Snow is kind of confusing with his PTSD. It seems fairly clear to me that he does have some, but when things happen, like a bomb exploding next to him, because the war was happening when he was a child, and things were just really, really terrible for him. But a bomb goes off, and he gets no flashbacks or no repercussions. He's physically injured, but he's mentally fine. Because you'd think if he was, like, in the war when the districts were bombing the capital, that he might have some issues with that. He's got issues with food, which is realistic, because he was, like, starving for a while, but not with other things. Like, his PTSD kind of just happens when it needs to. Suzanne Collins, where she really shines, is writing action scenes and action sequences. The games in this, as usual, were the most interesting part. She just has a handle on how people would behave, how they move, how they act, and making that very dynamic and interesting to read. So while this book has a lot of flaws, the games part, for me, was really interesting, and the characters behaved in realistic ways. Of course, Snow does have to end up in the arena for a bit in a very contrived fashion, but then afterward, this is confusing. So he gets into the arena, he has to help his friend, who again, the more interesting friend. He goes in there to help him, things go wrong, he gets injured a little bit. But when he comes out, he goes home and Tigress becomes fucking Sherlock Holmes. The Capitol didn't film any of him being in the arena, so Tigress just, like, deduces everything. She, like, looks at his clothes and she's like, this blood is from this blood is from this tear is definitely from that, and this blood, I don't think this blood is yours, this blood is from somebody else. And I'm like, what the hell, Tigress? Where did this come from? And it's never seen again. People who are really good at sewing and fashion aren't also, like, fashion Sherlock Holmes. They can't just look at a garment and be like, this is the exact scene that played out. So the overall plot of this book is kind of, will Snow ever get money? Because all Snow really wants is to have enough money to stay in his big fancy penthouse, keep the Snow name looking good and shiny, and go to college. Like, that's his goal. And that's basically the overall plot of the book, with the sort of undercurrent of the Hunger Games, you know, becoming a thing, and how does the Hunger Games go from this to where we are when it's Katniss's turn. Like, all of that is there, but this plot and this book is very meandering. It just kind of wanders around, following Snow through his life, throws an action sequence at us every time it feels like we might be getting too bored. It feels like the natural climax to the book would be the Hunger Games themselves, but those happen around the middle of the book and then it just keeps going, and as a result, there's no climax. This book also really wants to tie into the other Hunger Games books. I mean, of course it does, it's a prequel, but every other detail you see is like, it's like an I Spy game of the other Hunger Games books, and after a while, even I got sick of it, and I like that shit. I like to look at a book and be like, there's a reference, but this was so much. Everything was relating back to the later Hunger Games. Why does Snow hate Mockingjays? Why would Snow hate Katniss? How did this start, and this start, and this start? And, like, you find out the origin of, like, all the songs, and you visit Katniss's, like, lake in the woods, and it's just, like, too much. Too much. The story can be its own thing without tying back so much. I don't need to know who first sang the Hanging Tree song. I do not care. But they do keep piling on the reasons that Snow might hate Katniss in the future. I was waiting to find out that she's his fucking granddaughter or something. That's how much this book desperately wants to, like, tie in Snow and Katniss. And I'm like, it doesn't need to. Never once during reading the first Hunger Games books was I like, why does Snow hate Katniss so much? Like, that was pretty clear to me. She was a threat to the Capitol and his position, and, like, that's all it needed to be. We didn't need all this extra shit. I know some people love that, and I know there are already theories flying around that are like, Lucy Gray is Katniss's grandmother, Snow is Katniss's grandfather, and I'm just like, I do not want that. It's like Star Wars. Suddenly everybody has to be everybody else's kid, granddaughter, whatever. Also, this title is not metaphorical. This book is absolutely bursting at the seams with snakes and songbirds. I felt like in this book that there was weirdly less physical description of characters than we got from the earlier books. Now, it's been a minute since I read the other Hunger Games books, but a lot of characters are barely described in this, and it makes me really suspicious that Suzanne Collins backed off character descriptions because of the controversy that happened when people found out that Rue was a black girl in the first movie. So I think that Suzanne Collins might be planning for these to be a movie, and she's planning ahead. Oh, more about the songbirds and the snakes. I know this book is for young adults. I know that it's for younger people, and sometimes they need to have, like, metaphors driven home a little bit harder, but holy shit, I get it. She is the songbird, he is the snake. Please stop. One thing that I don't understand about Snow's motivation in this book is that the Capitol has done nothing but shit on him. When you make him poor and you make him struggling, then you have to have this very odd balance where you have to convince us that Snow, for some reason, believes that he wants to be like these rich fucks who are shitting on him. And never did I really get that strong feeling that Snow wanted to be anything more than just satisfied. Like, he never wanted to be anything more than not having to worry about where he was gonna live, not having to worry about food, and he wanted to go to school. That was it. I never got the feeling that, like, I want to be like these rich fucks who keep shitting on me. Because sometimes that happens. When people get shit on enough, they become really determined to become like the people who are shitting on them. But Snow is never that way. And the Capitol smacks him in the face over and over again. And yet at the end, he's like, I'm going back to the Capitol. I love that place. I want to do everything Capitol. I want to drink the Kool-Aid. Let's go. I'm going to be president. And I'm just like... He and Tigress joke at the very beginning about, like, oh, what would you do if you were president? But, like, it's a joke. They don't actually think that he's gonna be. He doesn't actually seem to want to be. And I think that really messes up the ending. At the end, if you're familiar with the ending, Snow goes camping for like 2 days, decides he doesn't like it, and decides to turn into like Darth Vader. Like, he goes evil because he doesn't like camping in the wilderness. That's what it felt like. Am I wrong? I did find it interesting. A lot of people complain about the romance in this, but I think it's supposed to be a bad romance. Snow does not love Lucy. He uses Lucy. He's incredibly jealous. It's a very unhealthy relationship, and I think it's supposed to be showing an unhealthy relationship. And a lot of people are looking at it and being like, well, his love came out of nowhere. It seems really weird. It seems really one-sided. And it's like, yeah, it's all of those things, because Snow is probably a psychopath. I'm just going to get to that now. A psychopath or a sociopath. Snow, pretty clearly from what I've seen in this book, doesn't feel empathy. Whenever there's a moment for him to feel empathy, a switch goes in his brain and he's like, oh, I should help this person because it will gain me this down the road. I should be a friend to this guy because I'm going to need him later. Everything Snow does is manipulation, and I think it's because he does not feel empathy. And so in his relationship, it's all about what Lucy Gray can do for him and how she makes him feel, and he's very possessive of her. And so I think that actually that's a pretty good portrayal of a deeply unhealthy relationship. And Lucy herself definitely feels like she is also understanding that it's unhealthy, and she is just trying to stay alive. Snow is a weird character to read from. It took me a while to put my finger on the psychopath thing, which does make me think it's, again, a little bit cheating to make him a psychopath. I mean, it's not cheating, but it feels like the easy road to be like, oh, he's just a psychopath. He doesn't feel empathy, and that's why he's, like, so evil. But honestly, I would have preferred a character who was just, like, super, super driven. I personally was hoping for an ending, because I knew he has to choose between, like, a life of luxury or the girl he loves or whatever. And I would have really liked if the ending had been a little bit more like, had been a little bit more of a gut punch to us readers, where it seemed a little bit more of a choice for him. Instead, it seemed really obvious how he was gonna go. And I would have preferred it if it was like, come on, Snow, you've got a chance to not be evil, make the right choice, and then he doesn't. Like, I would have liked that a lot more, because it would have made me feel something about Snow. Like, if it seemed like maybe there was a chance that he could be a redeemable person, and then, oof, he hits us with that, no, he just really is driven by power and greed, and he values the capital more than he values people. That would have been more powerful for me. Instead, the ending that we got was he was like, okay, fine, I'm leaving the capital with my girlfriend. Ew, camping is hard and dirty. I'm going back to the capital, where I will immediately fall in and be everything the capital ever wanted for some reason. Snow's motivations were just not compelling to me. Oh, and the snake thing. I want to talk about the snake thing. Again, how would I write it? At the very end, he's trying to find Lucy because she smartly ran away from him because she knows he's a murderer. And Snow encounters a snake and he's bitten by it. And he panics and he thinks that he is poisoned and he's going to die. And he finds somebody to help him. And it turns out that it was a non-venomous snake, and he just was, like, having a panic attack, and that's why his arm was, like, going numb or whatever. And I was like, you really missed a chance with that one to hammer home, like, here's a tie-in that I would have liked, because we all know that Snow in the later books, he has, like, blood in his mouth all the time, and I think it's from, like, ingesting poison to sort of do a Princess Bride thing where he ingests poison so that he is immune to it, or people try to poison him so often that maybe he's, like, been permanently damaged. But the theme of poison is kind of a thing in this, and I think it would have been really cool if the snake had been venomous and he barely managed to get back for help, but they managed to keep him alive, and this would give him even more motivation to keep going, because I should have died, but I lived, and so I'm going to fight through and tie in poison and venom to Snow even more. And I think it would have kind of brought it a little bit full circle, because there are lots of themes with snakes in this. But in the ending, just having him bitten by a non-venomous snake and then he runs around freaking out for a little while and then everything is fine, that's not a climax. I wrote, and then the book just ended. There you go. Those were all of my very lengthy thoughts about A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Am I disappointed I read it? No. I'm glad I read it. I'll probably read the next one. Okay, guys. That was a long one. But if you want more book reviews, I have a bunch more on this channel. I'm sure if you liked this, I'm sure you'll find something else to enjoy. So feel free to wander around, check them out. They're all on a playlist. Otherwise, I do new videos on Mondays and Fridays. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease if you're clicking. And if you want to support me monetarily, you can do that over on my Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive videos and other great rewards. At least I think they're great. I mean, they're alright. They're pretty good. I will see all of you guys again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! Whoa, look out! It's time for patrons! Those patrons are Adrienne, Amanda, Artemis, Irene, Jenny, Jesper, Lisa, Ray, Ryakio, Sabby Panda, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, Shelby, and Zaire. Whoa, look out! Oh, they're so awesome! Check them all out! Now today we actually have 2 brand new patrons, which is super exciting. The first one is Artemis and the other is Ray. Now I usually like to give people a chance for a special shout out, and Artemis has gotten back to me and Ray has not yet, so wait for Ray's special shout out. But Artemis is an artist and they have an awesome page for that, so I am gonna link that for you guys. Go check out their art. You will not regret it, trust me. It's really cool. So special shout out for you guys. Thanks so much for coming and supporting me. I really appreciate you. Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can take the sky from me.